after a historic month for Bitcoin with an over $30,000 up move in November. The BTC bull market is clearly in full swing. So let's see if we can expect more of the same through December and in 2025. Today, we're going to be doing a roundup to discuss Bitcoin's current conditions, and where better to start than the monthly returns heat map chart we have here on BitcoinMagazinePro.com. And as we can see, Bitcoin has had a fairly decent November, if you weren't already aware. We can see Bitcoin has currently, as I film this, had around 30% upside gains, which is actually a little bit down on what we saw from the high to the low we saw, or the low to the high, sorry. If we just go on the TradingView chart here, we can see as Bitcoin's lowest price throughout the month of November, was around $66,000, $67,000 before we topped out at nearly $100,000, about a 50% maximum move as we rallied by about $33,000. So not too bad at all. Bitcoin's biggest month ever. If you're here and you've been holding throughout all the months of choppy consolidation, if you've been here holding through the previous bear cycle, well done, you deserve this, and let's hope it continues. So let's try and look at some insights to whether we can see Bitcoin hopefully have a good end to the year. Q4 is typically one of the best months for BTC. If we just go back onto the monthly returns chart here, we can see December historically has been very strong, as well as November and October. Q4 has historically been Bitcoin's best performing quarter. So hopefully we can see some big upside gains, even if over the past few days or so we've had a little bit of volatility. But why have we had some volatility? What can we maybe expect to see in the coming weeks for December? Well, one big chart we can see is the BTC versus DXY, or the US dollar strength index. And what we can see is this has rallied almost exponentially alongside Bitcoin's upside move, which it's pretty surprising, actually. What we can see is these two usually have a little bit of an inverse correlation. So what this means, if I just draw on the chart here, is as the DXY, the US dollar strength index, decreases, we usually see Bitcoin massively increase. As the DXY increases, we usually see Bitcoin decrease, and etc. and etc. So the fact that we've seen a big rally in the US dollar strength, it's pretty surprising that risk-on assets like Bitcoin have also performed exceptionally well, because all that really drives markets is supply and demand. If the supply of BTC remains constant or is decreasing and demand increases, then we're going to see prices increase as well. And the same is true for the US dollar. If we see the supply of dollars entering the market increase and demands remain the same, then the US dollar strength should decrease. And of course, if the demand is increasing and supply is the same, then we should see the US dollar strength increase. But because Bitcoin and the US dollar have this inverse correlation, because we usually measure one against the other, it's very surprising and almost reassuring to see the strength in BTC to rally during these less favorable economic conditions. And as well as that, we can look at something like the global M2 versus BTC chart, which is again showing a little bit of a similar story. If I just zoom in over the past few weeks, we can see as Bitcoin has rallied, we've actually seen a slight contraction in the global M2 money supply, which again, given the fact these two have an almost perfect one-to-one positive correlation, we'd expect to see Bitcoin maybe struggling, or at least limited to our upside potential when this isn't rallying very strongly. But we haven't seen that at all. And I think one really positive thing is, of course, given the fact that we're eventually going to see these turn, the dollar strength index isn't going to continue increasing indefinitely. It is going to turn down at some point, and at that point, that might be the fuel we need to rally BTC even higher. But if we look at something like global M2 as well, we can see, especially given the situation we're seeing in America, the political situation, and a certain someone coming into power, we can actually just look to see what happened last time to maybe get some insight into what we can expect over the next few months in terms of economic policies to create more favorable conditions. And what we can see is the next president that we're going to see in the US, who has obviously already been in power, came into power in 2017, January 2017, and that really kickstarted Bitcoin's massive exponential move to the upside. And as well as that, if we just go back to the DXY chart here, what we can see is from 2017, which was around here, so January 2017, that was actually pretty much exactly when the DXY topped out before it massively rallied to the downside. And another really interesting chart we should be watching over the coming weeks is the BTC price year-on-year chart. Now, something really interesting I've noticed in this data is we can practically mark a spot around here, where once Bitcoin rallies above this, it really signifies the start of our exponential price increases. So we can see what we saw in 2017, if I just go here, as Bitcoin's price was rallying. We were seeing some good year-on-year gains, but we were struggling to break above this level. Once we broke above at around $1,000, it was pretty much exactly $1,000 when we broke above this point. We retested this line, and Bitcoin rallied up to $20,000, which was a massive, huge exponential rally at the time, going for 20x once we'd broken above this already high valuations of year-on-year gains. Imagine a 20x from here. So what we could also see is 2020, when we had this big pump as well after the bear market, topped out at this line. And again, in the next rally, once we came here, we had a little bit of a cool off period as Bitcoin reached around $20,000. And then again, once we rallied above that, Bitcoin had this big double peak cycle where it made over a 3x. And we've now been very similar to 2016, 2017, hovering beneath this line, but we're right at this point on year-on-year returns, where potentially if we see a little bit of a breakout, potentially a retest, maybe that's when we get Bitcoin's massive move into 2025 and hopefully beyond. And this is all also taking into account that even though we have had some volatility over the past few days, this hasn't fazed big institutional investors. ETFs are still accumulating as much BTC as humanly possible. We can see their net inflows are around $32 billion. If we look at something like the Treasury Tree Maps chart we have here, we can see MicroStrategy continue to accumulate and are now holding not far off 400,000 BTC. So clearly, even though we might have had a little bit of a retracement, November has been an exceptional month for BTC. December, of course, anytime you rally about 50% in a few weeks' time, you are maybe due a little bit of a cool off. We have to take into consideration December is usually one of the stronger months for BTC, but looking at the price action chart, it's hard to say for certainty. I do think once we break past $100,000, we are going to see some fireworks to the upside, but really excluding the short term, I'm very, very bullish medium to long term for BTC. All the stars seemingly are aligning, not just from a macroeconomic perspective, but a Bitcoin on-chain, a Bitcoin fundamental and technical perspective as well. Everything is looking incredibly positive for BTC going forward. Also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. And something I forgot to mention as I was filming this, if you go to our site, bitcoinmagazinepro.com, we are offering a Black Friday deal, which is offering 40% off for all site subscriptions. And that's not just for new users as well, it's for current site subscribers also wanting to upgrade their plan to the highest tier possible. So don't miss out on this very limited time deal to get Bitcoin Magazine Pro's best features and functionality, all for a fraction of the standard price. And make sure to check out all the resources we've discussed today, as well as the many more that are all available on bitcoinmagazinepro.com, your number one source for Bitcoin analysis. So just to summarize, throughout November, we witnessed the greatest monthly price increase for Bitcoin in history as the bull market restarted following months of chop. From pretty much our previous all-time high at $74,000 set in Q1, Q2 early this year, March, April time, we've seen many, many months, 6, 7, nearly 8 months where Bitcoin's price did practically nothing. This contraction led to an expansion, and here we are knocking on the door of $100,000. And considering our current macro environment, looking at the US dollar strength index and global liquidity, it really outlines the strength for Bitcoin to have rallied in less than ideal financial conditions. And not if, but when we see the next positive shift in global liquidity, which will have an influence on the US dollar strength index and pretty much just the global macroeconomic conditions for every risk-on asset, Bitcoin is likely to provide even better returns. The fact that we've shown this strength in these conditions means that when they are good, imagine how good things will be. I can't even imagine how good things will be. And given all of that, while the next few weeks are less predictable, obviously we've had this big run up and a little bit of volatility following that. I do think that December, as historically one of Bitcoin's best performing months, isn't going to let us down too much, but really short term, less predictable, medium, long term, seemingly very predictable, seemingly very bullish. If you like this video, then please visit bitcoinmagazinepro.com, where our analytics help you to cut through the noise to make informed, data-driven decisions about Bitcoin. With over 150 live charts, personalized indicator alerts, in-depth crypto industry reports, API access, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. Let me know what your thoughts are on how Bitcoin is likely to perform throughout the rest of 2024 and into 2025. Are you as bullish as I am on the medium to long term? Do you think Bitcoin maybe needs a little bit more of a retracement following our positive price action? How do you think December is going to play out? Are you going to be accumulating, taking some profit? Does it depend on what prices we hit? Whatever you feel like discussing, just let me know in the comments below and on social media. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.